I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. Welcome back to the Team Chip Podcast. We are back again. Not like we ever left and went very far.
Yep, we're here.
We're here, and we're ready to rock some socks. We're going to talk today about like one of these secret weapons with the air quotes, right? To a successful business.
I think the cool term, and it's probably like sewed 5 years ago. It's a hack.
The hack. We have
whatever.
The hack to some success.
I'm not going to try to sound cool
in your business,
or like I know what's going on.
Right. I think the more we do, the more we realize how little we know. Right.
Right.
Okay, so here we go. The hack, the secret weapon. Here it is. In sales, you build a book. You know, I did some sales early on, and basically what happens is you try to sell a product you love, they love, that betters their life, and then give them a service that makes them want to come back to you.
Right.
In the martial arts industry,
it's about building repeat customers, right?
Yeah, repeat customers. And I think in the martial arts and any other service industry, it's we call it creating an experience you can get nowhere else that's just, priceless to people so that they want to come back. We call, and the word in the industry is retention.
Right.
All right. We want to do the best we can. And I think in any business, I don't think I know in any business that your best customers are your retained customers, not the ones you have to chase down.
Yeah, the people that come back, even if they move away, they come back to town, then they're back to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I don't know that it's particularly a secret, but kind of about parents and how important parents are whenever you have a martial arts school, or it could be gymnastics, or it could be dance or anything else, but how important the parents are in this equation. And so I think sometimes maybe, they get overlooked a little bit. Parents don't particularly quit an activity for their kid or a business, because of the activity of the business. It's usually over some sort of confusion, frustration, or maybe silence. We would say lack of communication, right?
Absolutely. Parents want to feel that they're included, that they're respected, and that they're informed. The included is also not about them being in charge or them dictating, but just that they're, that they know what's going on.
Absolutely.
I think back to, there's been activities that, through the years now with our kids that we've done, that the ones that we ended up kind of going, yeah, this is not, I think we're done, is whenever you're like, I never know what's going on. I never, this was today. Well, I had no idea. And, granted, you can go, well, it was in this newsletter, X, whatever, but did I know about it? I did, it's that being sure that you're doing all the things that you can to be sure your parents are informed. And that they're a part of what's going on. They're not confused. They're not coming in going, never, because nobody likes feeling like, oh man, I'm an idiot. I had no idea.
Absolutely.
There's a point where you got to go, okay, is it me or is it you?
Right. And here's the thing. We talk about communication all the time. We communicate via the end of class announcements at every class and hanging signs in the lobby and around the gym mat where the parents are. And, just all kinds of things, emails and text messages and stuff. And we still miss it. What that makes me think of is the other day we had a situation with one of our younger employees or team members, and I had asked this particular team member to make a list that we needed to get in front of the other instructors, just something simple. And he's young, and he's, yes, sir, he's on it and puts together this beautiful list and gets it all put together. But several days later, I'm like, hey man, where's that list I asked you to create? I kind of need that done. And usually he gets things done within a day or so. And he's like, hey, that's done. It's right here. And he never said anything. He goes, oh yeah, it's done. I put it over here in this communication thread. And I was like, does anybody know that it's there? He went, oh, just a funny learning experience for him. But it was like, kind of back to what you were saying, we might have posted it in that newsletter a month ago, but if they didn't know about the newsletter, or if they're not informed about where it's communicated, that becomes important. So
absolutely,
let's talk a little bit about why parents matter. And maybe more than we think. I think, to me, common sense wise, anybody that runs a business that has kids and the parents are bringing them, dropping them off, picking them up, or really, I don't even like to say dropping them off. They're coming in and watching them, and they're participating in what's going on. But the parents are paying. They're making that hard
Right.
decision with their hard-earned dollars, and people vote with their money, right? And
Right. Absolutely.
yeah, and so I think to me it's just common sense. Let's talk about it a little bit. The parents are the decision makers in the
They are.
house. Yeah.
Yes. And you know, we could go off on a huge tangent on that, but in the ideal
Mm-hmm.
household, the parents absolutely are the decision makers.
Absolutely.
And kids can love class, but they can also have had a really hard class, and
Right.
they like don't want. They're like, I'm done. I don't want to go back. And a parent
Right.
that's really solid and sees the value is like, no, actually, just because this was a hard class doesn't mean that we're out. We're
Mm-hmm.
still in. And then parents need to be able to understand what progression looks like, why the structure matters, not just I think sometimes that we think that all of those things, the structure, why it matters, what progression looks like, and then how the discipline connects to their life skills, that those are just intuitive.
Right.
That they're going to
Mhm.
sit at the side and they're going to, I see why they make them stand at attention. I
Right.
see why they make
Right.
them
Mhm.
answer loud.
Well, one of my favorite things is zero downtime
Yeah.
as a teaching tactic on the mat, like zero downtime, because kids need to be engaged and moving. But here's the thing: kids standing at attention is zero downtime.
It is.
What a
That's
lesson!
an activity. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's a lesson in what? Self-control.
Right. Absolutely.
But if we don't communicate that
Mhm.
and actually say those words, and then you can get to the flip side of it, and it's like, man, they talked for 30 minutes and I have a good grasp of this, but the kids never actually did anything. So yeah, there is some, I don't like the word master, but there's some masterful communication that really does have to happen, so that parents truly, that they understand, we've talked about it before, they understand the why.
Absolutely. The why is so key. And remember, the parents are the ones that sacrifice. They work all day or all night or whatever that schedule is, and they decide to take their kids. I'm gonna
Yeah.
load you up, drive you there, pay for you to do this. And so parents are just monstrously important. And if they're parenting in a solid way, they're super important again, like you said, because the kids may not understand that lesson was hard today, but hopefully the parent sees it and kind of can reinforce that for them
Yeah.
and help them out. But sometimes we have to help the parents to understand the lesson as well.
Yeah,
Right.
that it wasn't just, I'm not just being mean because
Right.
I'm holding them accountable to something. I'm holding them accountable to something because life is about being held account.
About being stand up and be counted. Right.
Yeah, it really is. And so I think the thing that we have to remember is that if parents don't see growth, they don't keep paying
Mm,
for it.
mm.
And so sometimes that growth is not exponential, and
Right.
we have to be communicating with the little things like,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, do you remember
Mhm.
day one? Do you remember
Absolutely.
last week? Man, I
Absolutely.
see so much improvement there.
Mhm.
Even just, and even noticing things like, we actually had a situation like this just recently where it was like, it was these two little girls. They come in, they sit at there's tables in our lobby, and they are respectful,
Mhm.
polite, quiet. They
Mhm.
respect other people's
Space. Mhm.
space, and they're not there. And one of the other ladies that works with me actually went to the parent and was like, hey, I just want you to know how absolutely
Mm.
well behaved your daughters are. They do such a
That's
great
awesome.
job, and actually edifying, we've talked about this as well, edifying the things that you want to see
Mhm.
more of.
Mhm.
And then also like praising the things that they may not necessarily realize that are happening, because this mom is actually a lot of times helping with classes, or
Mhm.
she's in a class herself, and so she doesn't see those things.
Mhm.
And that
Absolutely.
is huge, because the other thing is that hasn't always been them. They have
They did
been
not start there.
before
Right.
like a little so and now they're not.
Right.
They're just so they there's a progression. They're progressing in rank, but their behavior and their
Mm.
people don't like the word obedience, but kids should mind their parents. If I say
Absolutely.
stop because I see the car coming, you should stop. Not
Believe
go,
me,
well,
when my wife says stop, I stop.
that's right. Stay back. But anyway.
We digress. So a while ago you were
Yeah.
talking, I have parents and have for years come to me and ask me this question: is my kid really doing okay?
Yeah.
Or is my kid really progressing? Or is this really working for my kid?
Yeah.
There's some variant of that question, right? And I years ago learned to answer that question with the question. And my question is always, do you remember their first day on the
Right.
mat? Right?
Right.
Yeah. So, and what that does is it gives them perspective. And most of the time, you kind of see a little light bulb go ding,
Mm-hmm.
and they smile and they go, "I do."
Yeah.
And then I typically will follow that up with like, pay attention to how they're moving today,
Yeah,
and think about
absolutely.
how they're yelling and answering and responding, and how strong they're standing when they're supposed to be standing at attention. And they go, a lot of times they'll even say, I see it, I see
Yeah.
it. And so a lot of times we just need perspective. The reason I bring that up is because that's when parents come up and engage you and ask you a
Right.
question. But many times, one of the problems in schools is we only talk to the parents whenever we have a need or there's a problem or something, right? We're not,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And they're incredibly frustrated that this, I mean, think about situations, because I know we've all had them,
right,
where you're like, okay, this has been going on for the past 6 months, and you're like, well, this is the first time I've heard about it.
right,
And you get defensive
right.
because you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the last thing that we want, because if you step back and look at the big picture, we all want your kid to succeed.
Absolutely.
Well, I should have been on top
100%.
of letting you know that this was actually, I was seeing this kind of percolate in the background, this
Right.
whatever this issue is, and I didn't get on it at the time. And so now it's a bigger issue. But then now also, instead of having the parents, on the same team with me and going, okay, yeah, let's move forward with this, then they're mad.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, justifiably so,
Right.
because we should have been on top of letting them know that something was going on.
Absolutely. So, stay engaged and move around amongst the parents. Make yourself available, I think, is one of the things that we're kind of talking about here. And if you see something beginning to brew, go ahead and address it right away. Like, hey, let's, another thing that we can mess up on is using martial arts language and really just assuming that parents just get what we do.
Oh my goodness, yes.
When many times, in my opinion, most parents, more and more, we're seeing parents come in and go, hey, I did martial arts as a kid. So
Right.
they do have a little bit of a foundational understanding of what we do,
Mm-hmm.
but many don't. They've done high school sports as a kid or something. And so they understand team a little and sports, but not so much exactly what we do. So we can't assume that parents always just get it. Another thing too is, over explaining, like technical techniques to a parent to get them to understand instead of, catch this, the why of the technique. I think that can be huge as well.
Right.
So just like I said, some of the things that we can do in the school to make to either muck up communication or just not do it well. And another thing is letting silence replace communication.
Yeah. So you have, somebody that maybe in the past you've had challenges with,
Right.
and you haven't heard anything from them. So you're like, ooh, the skunk in the corner, just leave it alone. Let me tell you, that skunk in the corner doesn't get less stinky if you leave it alone.
Right. Right.
It
Many times it
things
gets most stinky.
I was gonna say, yeah, usually it's a blow up waiting to happen. And so silence is not a good thing.
Absolutely. So, what are some things we can do in the school? We've already kind of alluded to many of these things, but make yourself available. One of the things we push our instructors to do is
Mhm.
when you teach class, obviously after class, some of the kids will come up and have questions, or you need to, maybe you're in a stripe period where you're putting stripes or tips on belts, and there's stuff going on. But at least one or two of the instructors, or if there's just two of you on the mat, one splits off and just makes himself or herself available to the
Mhm.
parents. Like, as the parents go by, kind of high five and make some eye contact with them, like, hey, little Johnny did great, little Susie did great. And that opens the door, at least for a parent, to communicate with you. And
It
ask
does, or it
questions.
opens the door for you to see a look on a face that's like, really, they did great today, and you're like, and you can bounce off of that and go further.
Absolutely.
Having clear expectations also whenever they get started is so
Absolutely.
important.
Mhm.
I think a thing that we really have to consider though is, do I have a 30-minute spiel that I'm going over all the things, and they're not going to remember any of that.
Right.
You have to be sure that you're going, okay, these are the key things. This is what gets you in the door the next day. And I'm going to be sharing information with you. But then the key is you got to do that part too. You can't
Follow
say, okay, well, there's, where you're going to be getting emails, you're going to be getting texts. And if you have questions and you have follow up that you have systemized and you have it built in so people don't slip through the cracks.
Right.
Because I think our, intentions are great. We want
Right.
we intend to get back to them, but do we always do it?
Always right.
If you don't have a system in place, it's not going to happen.
Well, I think you just the word here, and I was hoping that would come out as systems. We've got to
Hmm. You do.
sound so clinical and cold in a way, but we have to create communication systems. And so, like you're saying, whenever they start, it's easy to get into belt progress and standards and expectations in the next 3 months of events.
Right.
And they're like drinking from a fire hydrant. We have to make sure that we measure and drip just kind of what they need in the beginning to get them oriented into the program, and then have a system of follow-up communication and that drips out to them, and touch points, some little check-ins. They're going through the lobby. Hey, how are you doing? How's class? Are you enjoying things? Still feeling good? Reminders, encouragement, etc.
I
Because
think this is not something we're really going to talk about today, but especially on that initial communication, every so often, put yourself in as a test and receive those. If you have automations, if you have
right,
communications, if you have phone
absolutely.
calls, whatever you have in place, put yourself, almost zero base it, and um, put yourself in that position so that you're receiving it, so okay, there is a hole here. Because it's real funny whenever you're the guest, the hotel guest, you see, oh man, there's actually not towels here, or
Right.
you actually see the holes that are
Hmm.
in there. And I think it's really important that not just people are getting tons of information, but that they're getting the right information. You want to be sure that
Absolutely.
what they're getting is relevant, so that they're not tuning it off. The last thing I want to see is somebody unsubscribe because I'm inundating them with stuff that's not relevant to
Right.
them.
Absolutely. And about years ago, I heard the term value add information.
Yeah.
So, like, we try really hard in our systems to make sure what they're getting is something that adds value to their experience
Right.
and helps them to understand and to
Right.
move forward with us, and to keep them committed to the process, because it's not about the destination; it's about the journey, right? And
Right.
we want to
Right.
keep them in that journey as long and as well as we can. So, some thoughts on turning your parents into kind of retention allies, right? Uh, Greet your parents by name. This can be really hard when you have a lot of parents coming out and in the
Right.
school, but try to get to know folks, get to know them by name. And if you can't remember all the names, because I do personally struggle with that sometimes, at least just greet them. Hello, how are you? Great to see
Absolutely.
you again, and know their kid's name. And it was saying a parent's kid's name to them many times, I think, is just as good as saying their name, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that you're communicating with them. And what this makes me think of, and it's something that I stumbled across. A good friend of mine, Chris Rappold, mentioned it a while back, and I was like, "Hey, what is that?" It's a Zig Ziglar concept. It's called Pogo, and Pogo is get to know something a little bit personal, like who
Mhm.
they are and where what area do they live in, what schools their kids go to, what organizations they're involved in, and for us, we've talked about this before, but it's like, oh, oh, you own the plumbing business down the street.
Mhm.
Awesome. Next time we have a plumbing problem, we'll give you a call, right? Know kind of the organizations that they're connected to. Sometimes they're a school teacher or a school counselor, and you're like, hey, could I come in and speak to your class? I mean, there's just so many good things. So again, Pogo, get to know something a little personal. What kind of organizations, kind of what their goals are, and in this situation, we're talking about parents. So what are your goals for your kiddo in our program?
Mhm.
What brought you here, and how can we help you to get there? And then what are some of the potential obstacles that they might run into in this journey with you? Uh, and how can we prevent those obstacles from being
Right.
an obstacle? Like, oh, my little guy, he plays baseball in the baseball season. Well, baseball season's coming. You can start talking to that parent ahead of time and making a plan for how maybe you won't lose him, and you can help them to see he's great at baseball because of some of the skills we've helped add.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a great concept, getting to know the parents a little bit about what they do, how they're connected, things like that. And the other side of that too is just when you do have those conversations with people, hopefully they see you care, right?
Absolutely.
Because we're in the business of caring for people, and so it's important that we care a lot.
Yep, absolutely. A thing that we also need to be sure that we've talked about the sharing wins and improvements, and being sure that you're conveying the why. And another thing that's really important, and just we've talked about it, I think, around it, is being sure that you're showing their progress. That's not necessarily like, oh yeah, you just earned your green belt. Well, yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely. But also the improvement in their focus, their confidence, their effort, all of those things are super important to be sure that we're just communicating that.
All right, I got another acronym for you. It's
Yep.
G, sir. General, specific, improvement, and return. And so this is just like a little outline for the parents. Parent and child come together after class because we're talking about sharing quick wins about their child. Hey, man, mom, little Johnny did an amazing job today. He was really yelling loud and working hard. It's kind of general. And then specific, man, little Johnny, I was loving the way you were snapping those front kicks hard today. And then something that they can work on, like a simple thing, like when you're doing those front kicks, I really want to see you get those toes back a little more. So give them a little feedback and then return. Hey, am I going to see you back in class tomorrow?
Right.
Kind of recommit them to that return tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So, gee, sir, that's kind of a nice way to share a quick win, get the parent excited, give a little bit of feedback if you want to or need to in that improvement piece, and then return. Hey, I'll see you back in class tomorrow, or I'll see you back on Thursday, right? Yes, sir.
And I want to be sure and put just this little side note in there. This can see somebody could be listening to this and go, man, you guys are really trying to manipulate. And 100% no.
No.
Because if it's not truthful, that's manipulation.
Oh, yes.
And if it's manipulating for my benefit, but this is not about me. This is about keeping that child in a program that I know builds their confidence, their focus, their effort, their their discipline, their respectfulness. I can know because I've seen the end and I know what it can do. So this is not about manipulating. This is just about being sure that you're clear in your communicating so that you and the parents are working together.
Absolutely.
We're not at enmity with the parents.
No. Well, and another piece of this is explaining why the rules exist. I mean, like why that matters. So another thing, make sure you're clear about that. Sometimes parents don't understand, like, why when my kid is 2 minutes late, does he have to stand at the edge and raise his hand and ask for permission to enter class? Easy, because it's unsafe to have a kid just go blowing into class when all the other kids are doing striking techniques and maybe get hit. The next thing is sometimes your kid might be pushing back and dragging their toes, getting ready to go. And so every time they have to stop and raise their hand, it kind of holds them to account. Hey, you're a little late. You've got to ask for permission, and it puts them on the spot a little bit to make them responsible for that as well. So, so just helping the parents understand why rules exist and being clear with that so they can get on board with you and go, okay, that makes sense. I like the way that, I like the way that encourages my kid. Make sure you're inviting the parents to events, like not particularly decision-making events, but any kind of events.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have town halls periodically, and we invite all the parents to come to the town halls so we can go over the rules and we can go over some expectations.
Yeah, we try so hard to be sure that that nobody is feeling like they've not had an opportunity to learn and to understand and to ask questions, and there's power in realizing that other people had the same questions, because you may be like, oh, I don't want to ask this because I'm going to be like, no, oh, okay, everybody has the same question. But then the other thing about a lot of people having the same question is then that helps you to be able to be sure your messaging is more clear. Yeah. So it all works together.
I love that. So here we go. We're talking about turning parents into retention allies. Greet them by name, share, quick wins about their kid on the mat, explain rules, invite them to events, have events that they can come to that can help them to understand and feel a part of what's going on. But another thing that's hugely important is when you're giving that quick win about their kids, don't always make it about the technique on the mat. Make it about the progress they're showing in the areas of things like confidence and focus and effort. And it almost goes back to, asking that parent, do you remember their first day?
Right.
Helping them to see that progress and understand how that carries over into school and every other area of their life.
Sure.
And when parents see those things and understand them and are truly on board with that, they love it. And then the last thing I'll say on that is if a parent then is for lack of better words, bought in and understand and see your heart, what you're doing, and see the growth and improvement, it's way easier for them if they do have a struggle sometimes to come talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Because now you have, for lack of better words, kind of some emotional kind of equity built where they don't feel uncomfortable or not quite so much. So something key to remember, Strong boundaries don't push parents away. They keep them comfortable. And so, just in what we mean by that is, if a parent's sitting at the sideline, we call it unwavering support.
Yeah.
Clap for your kids and be excited for them, but don't coach them. And we're
Yeah.
clear on that. Like we don't, we have instructors for a reason. And so that's what we mean by that, strong boundaries and them understanding the rules and kind of expectations and how things work in that martial arts world.
Yeah, for sure.
That keeps them comfortable. So some things that we can do, we're just kind of a quick review, make sure your onboarding conversations are strong. Put systems in like maybe a 30-day touch point with your parents. So we have some things that we do that are a little bit different than that, but that's just another idea for something that you can use. Quarterly check-ins. Have events that reinforce the culture around your school, and when needed, have clear exit conversations, because you can learn so much in an exit survey / conversation. Something because like Glyn said earlier, when someone does have a struggle or an issue, that's a great opportunity to learn. It's a painful opportunity, but it's an opportunity to learn. And so remember, retention is a system. It's not particularly a speech. So retention is a system. Systemize the way you communicate, you move, and all the things you do in your school. And we've kind of beat that up a little bit.
Yeah. And I would really just encourage everybody to really look at how you communicate with the parents in your school.
Absolutely.
And actually just kind of step back. We talked about it for a second, just, that put yourself in that position to be receiving those communications, but all of it. And just be sure that there's not something that you see that is a hole. No, and then also adding just an intentional parent touch point this month. And that doesn't mean having one, but that means adding one.
Right.
Add something in an intentional, again, we've talked about it a lot, but that the intentional touch point is a relevant touch point.
Absolutely. And in my mind, it could be something, just if you're adding something as simple as making the goal of, I'm going to make contact with every parent that walks in the front door over the next 30 days and just say hi, give them a handshake, be friendly, pogo them if you were paying attention earlier. And then review your policies. And if you feel like you have a policy that's confusing or something, take the time to revamp that or re-communicate it or do it in a better way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just some little action steps maybe to take over the next month to move things forward. So we've talked about a lot. And one thing I wanted to say very quickly is also that I meant to mention earlier is I think another super valuable piece to your parents is for lack of better words, is when the parents get on the mat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That usually changes the conversation completely.
It does. But
I understand now.
That can be a whole different conversation once the parents get on the mat. It's an amazing thing when the family trains together. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We covered a ton of territory. Remember, your parents are not a problem. Your parents are an asset. They're an opportunity. So connect with them, communicate well with them, and let's keep those guys on the mat and everybody training well.
Yep, seeing the big picture.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review, because we need you. We appreciate you so much. And without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success. So go out there and never be outworked.